The best bits of Joy Drive.
Theatre, film, TV and more. Suzy Wrong reviews it all on Joy Drive with Em and Warren.
Oh, Suzy Wrong in the studio, live.
Oh, how the mighty fall. As a fan of TV shows like Succession and the Real Housewives franchise, I am well aware of the schadenfreude pleasure involved in watching the rich and powerful suffer. As our world becomes increasingly severe with its disparities between the haves and the have-nots, stories that serve a punishment for those who do little to improve the state of our greater good when they are in positions to do so have become for me a form of cathartic entertainment. In the movie Tar, now available to rent or buy on your favorite streaming platform, Australia's own Kate Blanchett plays a genius conductor, the world-famous maestro at Berlin Philharmonic. Her name is Lydia Tarr, a fictitious character who breathes the rarefied air of the classical music universe, an extremely privileged individual who is given everything she needs to create work that will reliably offer her audience experiences of sublime transcendence. That extraordinary amount of freedom she is afforded means that Lydia is showered with power, with money, and with space. And because she is only human after all, even though she's a well-heeled lesbian, it becomes almost inevitable that Lydia is discovered to have repeatedly abused her position. Tar is a story that no doubt emerges from the Me Too movement. It looks at how our systems allow for immoral, unethical, and downright despicable things to happen simply as a result of power discrepancies between individuals inherent in virtually all of the structures within which we operate. Accountability is easily erased by those who are not being watched over. But in Tar, it seems things are changing, and the dinosaurs need to start behaving because the Zoomers are coming for the Boomers. Warren, this is a movie that kept my brain racing for the entire 2.5 hours, and if I'm totally honest, for all the subsequent weeks after, I'm sure you have more than a few thoughts to share.
I loved Kate's performance, Suzy. I loved Kate's performance in this movie. I thought she was amazing. She deserves every award that she has got for the movie so far.
There was an incredible 11-minute segment that was like one shot, uninterrupted shot of her lecturing the students, where she was showing herself to be the genius that she is as well as the monster that she is.
Well, yeah, but it's interesting. I had cognitive dissonance while I was watching the movie because I loved the character, Tar's achievements, the professionalism, the confidence, a successful woman in power. The music was amazing, the passion that she showed. And I was thinking, I want to play in this orchestra. Like I was mesmerised by her performance and her character as well. But at the same time, in the first half of it, Suzy, I was thinking something's not right. Something's not right. So I sat in this position of, I love her, but I'm feeling a little bit uncomfortable as though something is... I couldn't work it out. And to be honest, I thought the first half of the movie, maybe the first third of the movie, was dragged out, but at the same time I was still captivated. Whereas ordinarily in a movie like that, where I was feeling that way, I'd switch it off or I'd go and empty the dishwasher or do other things at the same time. I couldn't stop
there were all
watching
these really, really subtle hints of where the film is going, but you never really know.
No.
Yeah, you just kind of see her doing her job in a magnificent way, but always knowing that something's going to hit the fan really soon.
And it hits the fan, and then it hits the fan suddenly.
Yeah.
And goes everywhere. I felt though, Suzy, I need to watch it another time. I only watched it once. I feel like I need to watch it a couple of times. I felt like, was the new recruits coming into the orchestra, was that the source of, her affairs? I couldn't quite work that out. I thought we got a few hints of that, but it wasn't clarified. I need to go back and watch. There was so much stuff going on.
I guess because she has to keep so many things secret, right? And she's trying to disguise all her ill deeds. So in a way, we kind of don't get a really clear picture of what it is that she's done. But it is very clear from her performance that, especially at the later bits when her conscience is disrupting her life. Like she hasn't been able to sleep.
No.
And she is affecting her work and everything.
Well, there was something else in the movie too. There, she was jogging and she heard things, and there were sounds in the house. And was that her imagining stuff, or was someone spying on her?
There was an amazing scene when she was jogging in the park, and there was a woman screaming. You could hear a woman screaming like she was being attacked. But she only hears it. My interpretation is that she only hears it like, how does it serve my music? I just thought, wow, it's so powerful.
Yes.
Like, she doesn't take any action. She's like, she can hear clearly a woman in danger. But she's just listening into like, oh, what's this amazing sound that's going to help me with my music?
What's in it for me?
Yeah.
And there's the narcissism.
That's right. The what's in it for me. And later we find out, actually early on, there are hints that she wasn't born into this world. There's a moment early on where she's practicing her accent with this like posh American radio. And you're thinking, oh yeah, she does sound like she's putting on a voice when she's talking. So you get an idea that this wasn't a world that she was born into. She has somehow managed to infiltrate with her talent into this rarefied world of great privilege. But yet she behaves like one of those people, as though she has no understanding of what disadvantage is, as though she has no understanding what it is like to not have those doors open for you. So for me, the most interesting thing about this film is the statement it makes about how easy people forget when they become one of them, when they were never one of them to start with.
That's true. They forget where they've come from. We are talking about the movie Tar, starring Cate Blanchett, with Suzy Rong here in the studio today. Something that didn't quite, I didn't find out was, the allegations. We saw the allegations happen towards her later on in the movie. We don't really know what happened with those, do we? We never find out where they go to. Are they real? Are they just allegations?
Was that how you saw it?
That's how I saw it. I never quite found out how they were resolved. And I must admit, when the movie ended, I was like, that's finished? We don't know?
The moment it started, I was just like, oh, this woman is bad news. And also, I think I have this impression like, there's this weird thing about when the movie star is so big and you go to a film carrying your feelings about that movie star. It's really hard. I think sometimes when you become too famous, and I always feel like someone like Cate Blanchett is so incredibly powerful, and because of that, I feel like, I have to be very sort of cautious about this person and not sort of be too fawning over these sort of people that are clearly super talented. You admire their work, but my personality is like, I would be like careful. I'm like, she's probably not as great a person that you wish she is. But that's my own baggage. So when I started the film, I thought, she's playing some kind of monster, isn't she?
Did you get angry when you realised that she was using her success to demonstrate that there is no longer a bias against women in the workplace?
Yeah, I think that was one of the main themes. It's like, I think it talks about feminism in a very subversive way, that the huge perpetrator of injustice in this story is a woman. And I love that, because I think when you talk about feminism, you need to be very careful not to break things into binary groups, because it's a man, it's definitely a bad thing. It's not about that. It is about how power is structured and power is used. And it's great that because it's a woman that's causing all these problems and causing so much harm to other women, we can see that it is about position. It's about how we reward people and how that creates circles of this sort of circular motion of harm and injustice that happens no matter who are in those positions. Like the point is that she's a genius, but she shouldn't be an exception. We shouldn't think that, because there is a woman in a high position, then our problems are actually not as bad as we think. It's only because she's an exception. And we shouldn't be celebrating systems where there are too many exceptions, that we shouldn't allow for these to taint the way we think about injustice.
You're on Joy Drive, and I'm joined in the studio by Suzy Rong. We're talking about Tar, starring Cate Blanchett. Suzy, something that I was thinking about throughout the film, and I don't know if this is the fact that because she was, she was abusive, really, wasn't she?
Yeah.
I didn't get any emotional connection with anyone in the film. I found myself watching it removed, whereas normally I get quite involved and quite emotionally connected to characters. I found I wasn't, and I'm wondering if that's deliberate because, you know, she is a narcissist and she is abusive and she does groom her victims, and whether we're made to not feel that emotion as part of that, because it seemed like she didn't have any emotion, did she? Unless, of course, there was something in it for her.
I was really invested in the film on a very intellectual level.
That's exactly it.
It really challenged my intellect, and I found it so delicious to watch it on that level. You know, because she's the protagonist, you don't want anyone to feel for her because she's done so much wrong. And you don't want the audience to feel badly for the other women who have fallen prey to her, because you don't want them to be, you know, classic victims. You know, you don't want to kind of feel sympathy and spend the whole time just feeling sympathy for them. I think in that way, it was a good decision to not sort of anchor the place in emotional drama and encourage as much just intellect engagement as possible. And I'm wondering, if people if people can be encouraged so easily, because we are so used to drawing people in with emotion, with drama, with tragedy. But in this case, it just wants you to think all the time. Think, watch and think, watch and think. And in that way, I feel like it's an unusual film and a film of high caliber.
Suzy, I wonder, we were saying earlier, just you and I were having a chat, and you were saying you really like documentaries. I wonder if it almost sort of had that appeal in some ways, because it didn't necessarily have that emotional connection, whether it was more of a documentary style watching a film.
Maybe. I think it was very clear with the messages it wanted to speak, but it was very clearly fictitious, I thought. I spent a lot of time thinking and hoping. I'm hoping that this has never happened. Like a woman has never done these horrible things. So I think I did a little bit of Googling. It looks like there hasn't been a woman in this sort of scandal in the...
Lydia Tarr.
Yeah, in the real world. So I am a little bit concerned that, this... Like, why do you want to make this central woman a villain? So I do have questions about that, a bit of cognitive dissonance there. I'm like, I'm not sure how I feel about, making this woman who should be a great hero into this horrible character. But I also really value all the questions and all the themes that it brings up because it's a woman. And if it's a man, it's just a really boring story, I think.
I agree. In conclusion... Did you admire or did you dislike Lydia? Or could you not make up your mind?
I never admired her. Mm-hmm. I disliked her from the start. Just the way that she was performing that very hoity-toity stuff, which for me, it was very clear that she was... Sometimes I thought she was poking fun at herself because she is sort of so well regarded and she's completely liked. She's been in that A-list for 20-something years. So I think she has an understanding that she's not a normal person. So I was enjoying watching her beat herself up a little bit. I don't know if that was her intention. But in terms of the talent and all that, I guess I was happy to see that in this fictive world that a woman can get to those heights. I don't know if a woman has ever gone to those heights.
It's interesting too because her child was being bullied at school and I found that scene really chilling when she goes up to the other child and introduces herself as Petra's father and basically threatens the child who's doing the bullying. We all hate the bullies, but I found that scene really chilling, I must admit.
Yeah, it was good to see her family life. Yeah, I guess there was all that stuff. Like, I guess they had to make her a real person. And I do feel like it was a real person. But I was very convinced that it was a very real, horrible person.
Me too. We are talking about Tar, starring Cate Blanchett. Suzy, what is our homework for next week?
We're going to the movies, literally, to see The Inspection, in which a young African-American man joins the army in hopes of winning his mother's respect after she rejects him for being gay. And it's a true story.
The Inspection at the movies.
At the movies.
With a chalk top.
Yes.
Thanks, Suzy.
Joy Drive on Joy 94.9 FM in Melbourne, Joy on your digital radio, iHeartRadio, TuneIn.com or the Joy app. No matter where you are.